I'm Beenu Arora, moderating this session along with my esteemed guests on this panel, and I'm joined by Iyer, Chief Information Security Officer for Ziff Davis, and also with Rohit Kohli, the Deputy CISO for Genpact. So again, thank you so much, guys, for coming, for this podcast, and really appreciate your time for coming down here. I think just to kick things off and to set the motion going, uh, do you mind if you just give us a quick snippet and brief about your organization and the role which you're currently playing?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I'm Rohit Kohli, Deputy CISO at Genpact. We serve 200 plus Fortune companies, providing finance and accounting, digital transformation services to our clients. My role is I lead the security engineering incident response program, and then been with the company for almost a decade now.
I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Ziff Davis. Ziff Davis is a digital media and internet services company. We have subsidiaries and brands in gaming and entertainment, and cybersecurity and MarTech, in digital media, healthcare media, and tech media as well. Ziff Davis has grown through acquisitions. We are really M&A heavy, and that's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Super exciting. So I think I really want to understand, there's been a lot of buzz about AI. I mean, there's like a multi-billion-dollar companies being formed almost on a weekly basis now. One thing I'm pretty curious about, and I think I'm sure the audience is also keen to know about it. Since this whole advancement in the AI space, you as the CISOs, what are some of the biggest challenges are you currently facing? And let me be more a little bit specific. Like, for an example, a lot of new malwares are coming in the market, new hacking tools are coming in. People are literally writing these code on almost like on every second they're writing these things up. So what are some of the biggest concerns and challenges in this space? We'd love to learn more. Maybe Sai, we can.
So, and Rohit and I, we were talking about this maybe a couple of days ago. I'll set the stage saying a lot of fear and promise of AI is hype. For sure, as of today, in August of 2025, right? A lot of what we are talking about is what we expect will happen in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, that sort of thing. That being said, from a threat perspective, we're seeing threat attackers, and Rohit, you're probably and yourself as well, Beenu, is we're seeing more and better phishing attempts, with I guess more video phishing and deep fakes and that sort of thing. It's just, at least from our perspective, it's just we're starting to see that. It's not prevalent. A lot of threat exploitation has gotten to be using autonomous AI bots and that sort of thing, in terms of if there's a new vulnerability or a 0-day or a 1-day, that sort of thing, it gets starting to exploit it pretty quickly. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But one thing that we have been seeing a lot increase is in deepfake attacks. There are a lot more targeted phishing and wishing campaigns, specifically targeting executives and trusted advisors. And then that's been a means to defraud billions of dollars. The recent ones, we have seen it in UAE, and the Qantas one are good examples to reflect on how increasingly this has been a trend. In addition to that, I think there's a big edge in zero-day attacks as well, specifically targeting the open source vulnerabilities. Because of that, we have seen now developers are getting more used to writing the code faster, and with that we have seen there's been approximately 86% increase in vulnerabilities both at the code level and also targeting the network edge devices as well.
Right. Now that's like almost like as interesting and as scary as I could say. And one thing which I'd be very curious about is, I mean, especially, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, you being especially a public company, and I think Genpact is also a listed company. There's obviously a lot of geopolitical, factors which comes into play, which ultimately squeeze down the spends. There's always a pressure to do more with less. And I think one thing which I always get confused, or sometimes, this paradoxical, like the attacks are increasing, they become way more complicated. There's a lot of interest or regulations, or new compliance requirements are coming in, yet we are not given enough security or sufficient security budget. So I think optimization becomes like an everyday battle. especially given the positions you gentlemen are holding. So I think the audience would be very curious to know, especially in the current era, which there are so many new and unknown things coming in, especially with the advancement of AI. And then you have traditional security measures like firewalls and everything, you still have to keep it. So how do you plan to optimize your spends or optimize your budgets or how you optimize your strategy in general? I mean, I think we'd love to learn more about there.
You want to talk about it? I know you guys are doing a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah. So I'll take that. So you're right. The budgets are shrinking, and the attack surface is evolving. It's surging at a very different scale altogether. I think the way we in Genpact are looking at solving this is risk prioritization is probably a good way to solve for that. You cannot solve for everything, and at the same time, you cannot fix every vulnerability. So you need to understand your attack surface better. You have to shift your focus from the periodic way of doing periodical assessments to more continuous in nature. And for that, you could use tools which are more continuous in nature, helping you to continuously monitor your exposures and complement that with breach attack and simulation technologies. Focus on the critical and high severity vulnerabilities that's targeting your environment, and specifically the ones that are exposed on the internet. In addition to that, user education plays a significant role because human element continues to be still the weakest link. And now with AI, threat actors using sophisticated phishing and vishing campaigns, they are targeted more than ever, I could say. So continuously perform simulation exercise to train your executives, your leadership folks. So one, they understand what's happening and how they could be potentially targeted is potentially a good segue to do more with the less budgets.
Yeah, keying off of what Rohit said, threat actors are actually, they're able to harness AI to do a lot more context aware, I guess phishing attacks, but also they're able to do really quickly open source intelligence on your executives, on your businesses, and then tailor their phishing attacks or vishing attacks and deepfakes to be very specific to your company, to recent events that might have happened with your company, whether it's an acquisition or a new product launch or things like that. So that makes it a lot more. So gone are the days when you would get a really poorly written email that says with grammatical and typos and whatnot. Doesn't happen anymore. It's very realistic. It looks like it might be a vendor or a third party that you have interacted with and that sort of thing. And I want to flip it over to you as well, Beenu, because you have a lot of experience in this. So what are you seeing from threat experience, AI threats?
Yeah, I think the traditional security tools, they have a natural limitation that they are not built, they don't have the embedded smartness inside them. I can go a little bit more technical if I can, but I think a lot of the traditional signature-based or heuristic-based technologies are becoming very obsolete, especially with the advancement of AIs. And what we are observing, I think this is one thing which Cyble is also heavily embarking upon, is like what we call as a dual memory architecture in terms of creating the new defense layer for the organization, where we can make the SOCs a lot more autonomous and make it using non-deterministic workflows do better actions. And I think that's where the direction we see as an industry, where we can be a lot more, not just being proactive. I think we can elevate ourselves from like the 90% of problem which the machines can take care of it itself, and focusing on those 10% of the unique threats which really demands a human intervention. Which I think is also a good segue to my next question, because I think with the advancement of security tools and several companies coming in this space, I think there are companies which are coming with AI-based agentic AI workflows. Some will focus more on the deterministic workflows, some with non-deterministic. Some are focused more on the deep research or analysis pieces, so forth. But I'd be curious to know, because this is a question which also was lingering to me many years ago, like what the shape or what the future for cyber defense is going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. So today, like just to set the context here, I think across all the industry we see you have an L1 team, which is generally it's mostly an outsourced setup which you give it to somebody else. And then L2 is mostly in-house, L3 is something you have a retainer and so forth. It's a pretty stock standard playbook which almost every CISO has been followed, myself included. But I want to understand from you visionaries, because obviously you are heavily involved in advising many of the startups, including Cyble for that matter. So I'd be curious to hear what you think the future of cyber defense is going to look like in 3 to 5 years down the line.
So, okay.
Maybe we start with you, Rohit.
Yeah, maybe I'll start and I'll talk through some of the examples which are very relevant to us and some of the AI-driven, AI for security side of the use cases that we've been working on. First being, we've been able to use AI to reduce the amount of effort that a developer or an information security person used to spend on threat modeling. That used to be an extensive exercise where it used to take us days to perform a threat model. What we are looking to do, and we've been partially successful in doing that, is using AI to create the threat models for our applications. And we've been fairly successful in educating our developers, testers, and business analysts. In doing so, we've reduced the time it used to take by approximately 60%. So if you feed in the right level of architectural information, it maps the MITRE attack and use the other techniques to map out the exact mitigation that could apply straight from those threat models. And then you can improvise that by feeding the historical data. The second area where we've been seeing a significant improvement is in AI data discovery and classifications. That's an area where we have seen a huge progress. We use the data discovery tools which are now doing AI-enabled discovery. With that, we have been able to find out the crown jewels and able to map out clearly by application, by entity, by business vertical, where do we have that huge volume of data and by number of records. And we use that data to strengthen our governance practices. Doing so, we have been able to delete a lot of the unwanted data which resided within our environment. We have been able to fix the misconfiguration on the high-risk assets, and we have been able to archive the data which was no longer needed. So doing this has significantly reduced our attack surface because less data means less thing to worry about it. In addition to that, I've already talked about the deepfakes. So we've cloned the voices of our executives and doing the simulations to educate our trusted advisors, executives, to help them understand what would it mean if somebody tries to target them.
Yeah. And to pick up on one earlier point that you mentioned, Rohit, and Beenu yourself as well, the threats that were there in the past, they don't go away, right? So new technologies just add on more risk and more exposure on top of it. So it's on us to how do we make the best use of the company resources, right? How do we optimize the dollars and resources and and resource time, and how can we basically shrink the amount of administrative work that needs to get done. For example, we could use AI to analyze it, discover data, analyze the inputs, and provide all of that over to a human being that's in the loop to say, okay, so that the human being doesn't have to do all the research and gather all the data gathering piece of it, to present that to the human being to make a decision on what needs to happen. I don't think we are there yet, and I might be mistaken. I don't think we are there yet where the AI can make decisions autonomously on behalf of the human being yet. It might happen in the future, but I don't think we're there yet. And that's part of some of where I see in the future. We're talking about level 1, level 2, level 3 SOC analysts, right? I think that's going to get flattened out. I think a lot of the data gathering, initial triaging, and analysis part of it, AI might be able to do these are not deep, complicated decisions that needs to be done. So AI might be able to do that and then present some of the triage data over to a human being to say, okay, what do you want me to do next after that?
Yeah.
So I want to add on to that. With AI, you could definitely significantly reduce the noise, and if you do the context enrichment right, that helps you with faster decision making. The amount of time it used to take us to analyze the logs has reduced significantly because with the context enrichment, we know the exposure, we know the business impact. With that, we could do a risk prioritization, and that helps us move the loss faster. So AI may not replace the humans, but it definitely increases the productivity.
That's a super fascinating answer. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think I'm going to put out the last question, and this is for all the cybersecurity founders and entrepreneurs out there. So, and this is something which we didn't document it, right? So it's going to be on the fly. So, for both of you, tell us one particular problem which you are still waiting for a solution, or waiting for an entrepreneur to come back with a solution, where you would say, take my money.
Why don't you start with?
I don't have a specific one, but I'll reframe the general problem there. So the problem of cybersecurity these days is too much of data. You were talking about noise, right? The problem is too much data, too much noise, and not enough time, not enough resources. And AI obviously can fix a lot of that. But how do we make that intelligently and correlate? So correlation has been the holy grail for the longest time for all these SIMs and all the various tools and whatnot. But then now we have data coming from all of these little data sources. How do we pull all of that together and then make it and into to what Rohit was talking about? Add context to it, have business context around it, and then allow it to advise on the risk, relative risk levels, or risk prioritization. That will allow the human beings or the people that are mediating it, because I don't want to see 10,000 vulnerabilities. We're not going to be able to fix that today. Tell me the 5 or the 25 or the 50 that we need to fix this week, and then that's what it is.
And to complement on that, I think if you look at the whole founders world now, there were about 3,000 plus new founders that we saw at RSA. And I'm sure there's a lot more now at Black Hat too. Everybody talks about one fancy problem that they can solve for it. And then there's been a lot of vendors in the risk quantification space as well. One thing that we always struggle to answer is, how secure are we? Can somebody really help me to answer that? By doing A, B, C, D thing, my risk posture is decreasing. And when new attack happens, how are we doing in comparison to that? Those answers are always difficult. Those questions are always difficult to be answers. And even having so many great technologies with now AI also, those questions still gets answered and takes the maximum amount of time for us. So if we could answer that from a risk posture standpoint, I think that'll be a breakthrough.
No, thank you so much, Rohit and Sai. And I think I'll probably give a third as well. I think the companies which are able to ask, or where the systems can ask the right questions, I think those companies can do remarkably well in the future as well. And then that applies to threat management, whether it's a identity space or governance space. I think there's a huge, amount of opportunity sitting up there. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to our podcast today, and thank you so much, Rohit and Sai, for joining me on this podcast. So, good luck and all the very best.
Thank you.